Sean, can you talk about the current interest in alternatives or private market assets? Because one would think that during the recent market volatility, being in a vehicle that's not mark to market would be preferable.
Yeah, so absolutely. In fact, we did a survey of investor sentiment, and one of the things that we noticed is people want private equity and private credit and access to it. And you're seeing that much more on the retail side. So yeah, absolutely. And when you think about it, what do they really want? They want access to that, and they want the returns.
Can you talk about how the emergence of AI has also contributed to this growth of investors getting into alternatives?
Sure. So in a couple ways, when you think about this, to try to take this asset class and put it into a more liquid product creates complexity. So the enabling technologies, including AI, enable you to solve that problem. It's also solving the issue of investor connectivity, because these investors really want to understand how it's working, and they're not as sophisticated as the institutional investors.
Investors want to understand how it's working. Regulators also want to understand how these vehicles work. Can you talk about the challenges on that front, or have we already overcome them?
Haven't overcome them, but we're in a good spot. And the way I think of it is regulation ebbs and flows, but right now we're in a regulatory environment where the regulators, the securities regulators, it's just not in the US, it's globally too, they understand investors would like access. And so they're sitting there asking themselves, how do we enable that, but also give the right guardrails? Technology solutions are helping with that, other sort of product solutions. So they're basically working with the industry, with investors. And a good example of that is what we're seeing on the crypto front, where the regulators are really sitting down with industry, with investors, and saying, what's the problem set? How do we solve it so we can provide you the access in an appropriate manner?
Can you talk about the evolution as to how asset managers have added alternatives to their operating models? We saw a big shift in 2022 when both stocks and bonds fell, and everyone was selling and moving towards alternatives. So where are we in terms of getting those alternatives on platforms for retail investors, not just the rich folks?
Yeah. So where you are is the asset managers understand there's this need out there. And some of them had the asset classes, but not the retail investor base. Others had the retail investor base, but not the asset class. So they're saying, do I buy it? Do I build it? Do I partner? I think the thing we're seeing the most is partnering. So people who have the private equity, private credit experience, partnering with traditional asset managers. But you do see some buying. So you saw a number of people buying private credit. So we're seeing both.
And then finally, now we're seeing a flood of private market assets or alternatives hit the market. How does KPMG help the asset managers and help the investors and help everybody distinguish between them?
Yeah. So a lot of it is around communication and also enabling the operations. We spent a lot of our time saying, how are you going to basically design this product so that you provide the accessibility in a way that is intuitive and doesn't intimidate? Are you going to enhance your communications so that you're meeting the needs of the investors? And then how are you going to operate this? A lot of those structures were based upon, well, I'll do valuation or I'll do something quarterly or monthly. Well, you get into these retail products, you have to do it daily. So basically, how do you get that process to work on a daily basis?
All right, well, thanks for coming on and talking about it.
My pleasure, Greg.